Welcome to the Real Estate Debate, where we debate the hottest topics in San Diego real estate. Let's meet today's panelists. Guest number 1, Bryan Devore, Realtor for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, California Properties. Guest number 2, Broker Associate of Welcome to San Diego Real Estate, Nicole Hazelton. Realtor for Team Azizi at Whistle Realty, Sonia Azizi. And the owner-broker of Mark Schwartz Realty, Mark Schwartz.
All right, welcome to the Real Estate Debate for TV. Thank you all so much for being here. I know everybody in this group. What a great group we have today.
We're excited.
Thank you.
To tackle the hottest topics in San Diego real estate. Let's jump right into topic number 1. Buying real estate in areas considered to be the ghetto is not only affordable, but also a good investment strategy for first-time buyers in San Diego. Mark Schwartz.
That's a great question. Obviously, as prices escalate, and affordability becomes less and less prominent, then those are the areas that people will look into to try and get in. Now, the good news is that the city and the county is always pouring money into redevelopment, and there's all kinds of opportunities, loans, grants, and financing options for first-time home buyers. But as always, I'd be concerned. I don't know if I'd send my daughter down to the Ghetto to buy a condo. You may consider investing with them or going for a different opportunity. There's always great opportunities out there in better areas, a condo, a townhouse, as opposed to a house. But I would definitely look into what the city's doing and what their plan is for the next 3 to 5 years, and when evaluating a ghetto property.
So look at the city plan.
Yeah, to see what their plans are, what they're looking to do, how much money they're putting into that area, and you can make a better decision on if that's where the next place to be is going to be.
Very wise advice. Sonia.
As an investor myself, I would buy there. It's a little bit more riskier buying there because you get like lower end tenants. But as far as the rate on your return, your ROI, it's a better investment.
What about first time buyers though?
First time buyers, if they're okay with that location, absolutely, because it's still affordable, and they can get into a property and eventually rent it out. Why not? So I still think it's affordable. I mean, honestly, like San Diego, we don't really have ghettos. Come on.
True
it's not
story.
Compton.
True story.
It's still okay.
That's why I said ghetto.
Yeah, it's not really ghetto. It's still, I know a lot of families that live there, they like it. They could still drive to different schools, and it's as long as it's affordable and getting yourself into a property, I think it's always a good investment. No matter where you are in San Diego, it's still beautiful. And I would say some places in the ghetto, it's still closer to the beach.
What you're thinking is ghetto, actually.
Yeah.
So if there's crime and
for
drugs and
interpretation.
that type of thing,
We would say
you
right
certainly
now-
want to stay away from those areas.
Yeah, some of the areas that used to be considered
Like
to
in
be-
Canto.
In Canto,
Yeah.
or even Barrio Logan, or even
Right.
east of there. Some of those areas that now might be considered, Nicole, that's kind of your hood over there.
Barrio.
It doesn't look like she's from Barrio Logan.
You from Barrio, But I mean,
I've sold homes in City Heights, though, that are in the mid-4s, and they're at
Certainly.
the median price point. So if you ask me, I think there's 20 follow-up questions that I'd have for those first-time home buyers before they make a decision where they're going to purchase. Ghetto is characterized in the Urban Dictionary for an underprivileged neighborhood that has a high crime rate. So
We just can't use that term. When,
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
you
They're
can't
like,
use
where
the
should
term
I buy?
ghetto,
Well,
so-
I'm thinking maybe the ghetto. How's that?
Right.
They can use it. We can't use it.
So what if it's a family? What if they have children? The school district will come into play.
Sure.
If there's a high level of crime, will somebody feel safe there? What if it's a single mom? It just depends on who the buyer is and where they're buying. But
Sure.
I have sold properties in some of the characterized underprivileged neighborhoods in San Diego, and you're still looking at in the mid-4s. So it's all just relative to the buyer.
well, and I think the purpose of bringing this up, I'll come to you next, Mr. Devore, is that these more affordable areas, while they may seem ghetto in comparison to some of the other areas, are the best investments, because pretty much all of San Diego is being built out at some point. That's what we've seen so far. If you bought in the old ghetto, it's not that anymore. We saw
Right.
that a lot in downtown.
Right.
What do you think, Mr. Carlsbad?
Well, there's no ghettos in Carlsbad, so I'll have to think about this. But
Get outside of
Step out
your
of the
right,
Carlsbad
right,
box.
right. See if I can do
Oceanside.
this. The first-time buyer, you have to ask them, what's their goal? Are they looking at it as an investment? Are they looking at it just to get into the market? Affordability is really hard, and what a lot of areas like San Diego are doing infill. So that maybe is something to look at as well.
Well, let me answer your question.
Yeah.
Because I think that what this is the first-time buyer out there who simply cannot afford to
Right.
buy in most areas of San Diego, but
Right.
does want to get in.
Okay.
And this is their only hope. But also, if they're ever going to be a move-up buyer, they're going to need equity from this initial one. So that's kind of the first-time buyer that we're talking about.
So, but okay. So now let me ask you this: as Nicole said about follow-up questions, what if their job is nowhere near the ghetto, so to speak? So yes, they can afford the home, but they're on the road for 2 hours a day. You know, I think you have to look at all those things, and it may be a good area for some first-time buyers to go, but maybe not all of them. If you look at the ghetto areas that have been renovated, it has proven to be true that it's a good place to go. But what if, as Mark said, you look at the city plans. What if the city council changes and they scrap the plans for that area? You've just bought in that home, planning on banking on something that didn't happen. So there's a lot of things you got to consider.
It's accurate that it's location, 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 right? We always say it's location, location, location. If you're looking at a first-time buyer who needs to build equity, and you got to look at their long-term plan too. How long are you going to be in this property? Like you said, is it an investment property, or you're going to be there 2 years and move on and buy a house? You're better served being in a better area in a smaller spot, and you're going to build that equity, and then you're going to be market-proof. God forbid the market turns and things go up and down. Nobody remembers how low it was when it gets high. Nobody remembers how high it was when it goes low. And so those are things that you need to also factor into that decision, because when the market turns, those are the areas that are first likely to drop.
Yeah, that's true, but you could just, like I said, you could just rent it out because rent's not going down. I mean, have you guys seen rent going down? It keeps going up. It goes up to 30%.
depends on
If
the
that
first-time
area never
buyer.
develops, though, then and the services aren't there, the rent won't be there either.
Hey, what
And
if they
that's
don't
the
have
overall
a,
picture,
what if they don't
too.
have a down payment and they've put all the money that they have down, even if it's 3.5% of a gift from a family member? They don't have the opportunity to move and just rent their place out. So they might be in a position at that point where now they're tied to this property and they have to stay there, and or deal with the bank and try and get a loan mod or whatever, the things that we've faced year.
Well, and you have to look at the overall picture too about how
Yeah.
quickly is something going to appreciate that area, because there's a lot of places in San Diego that have very high density. There's a high level of apartment complexes that are sprinkled into the residential communities, and they're gentrifying slower. So the perfect example is somewhere like City Heights.
Yeah.
It's not gentrifying as fast as Normal Heights. So
Right.
places
Even
like
though
that,
it's
you
right
But
take
it
next
that
certainly
into
is an
consideration.
area,
It's right there.
it's bound to pop.
It will.
It's just
Yeah,
a matter
Yeah,
of when.
it will. It
does.
And
I mean,
the city
Temecula
caters
does
into
too.
that area.
Okay.
Now, Carlsbad, I know you don't know about City
Yeah.
Heights, bro.
I've heard of it. I saw it on a map once.
That factors into the overall goal of that first-time home buyer. How long are they willing to be in that property?
Sure.
Yeah,
Because you say it will. City Heights will. If you bought in City Heights 3 years ago, you're still waiting for that to happen.
accurate.
Meanwhile, you now have 2 kids instead of 1, and you need a bigger home.
It was a
You can't
10-year
get out.
plan. It was a 10-year plan. So if you look at the plan, over the next 10 years, this is what we're going to do. You may say, hey, in 3 years, well, I'm out, and so I'm not here to wait the 10 years. And so, but from an investment side, absolutely. Get in there, rent it out, muscle it out as it develops around you, and you're going to gain
Well,
big.
and it depends on the buyer's financing terms too. If you have a VA first-time home buyer and they go in, they can do what Sonia was saying, and they can turn that property, they can refinance it into a conventional loan when they have enough
And then rent
equity,
it out.
and then they can use their VA benefit again with no down
Absolutely.
payment, so they don't technically have to pull equity from the property, so long as they have enough there to
Right.
refinance into a different type of loan.
You sound VA certified.
Yeah.
There's just so many factors that come into consideration with
I
that.
think
It's
the
not
bottom-
like a yes/no.
I think the bottom line is it's potentially a good idea, but you can't bank on it. So you have to really weigh. You have to do all your research, weigh the pros and cons. Like Nicole said, crime, schools. If that's all important, then you really can't be there. So it's very specific to your situation.
True, and if you do time the market properly, if you get lucky, let's say, and you time the market really,
can't
really
time
well.
You have the
real
right
estate market.
agent.
If you get lucky, let's just call it what it is.
Okay.
But if you get lucky, like if you bought 2011, it doesn't matter where you bought, you're up huge.
Sure.
Right.
So, that there's things like that. But I'm saying in general, for most people, they're looking at the affordability issue. It's you might say, well, just buy a condo in Carmel Valley instead of buying that single family in Canto. But the trouble is that might not be big enough, right, for these families who are wanting to buy something for the long haul. Because I don't think there's a get-rich-quick scheme that you can count on in real estate, no matter
It's a
what.
long-term
You can get
investment.
lucky,
Right.
Yeah.
but there's
You can't
no
count on
If you're
there's
in
no
business,
strategy.
Especially
and
with
you
our
know what's
3.5%
going on.
buyers,
Right.
you can't. I
Right.
mean, If you go south, if anything happens to the market, the 3.5%, that's like, it's not just in Canto, it's going to be everywhere. You still have those people that are putting 3.5%, whether it's Rancho Penasquitos or in Canto, they're still going to be upside down. They're still going to be hurt because 3.5% is not a lot of money.
Well, and
Well,
let's
Nicole
talk about
said
the
school districts, the beach, those things are factors that will always play into people's decision making. And so I want my kids to go to the best schools.
Right.
I got to be close to the coast. Excuse me. I got to be by the 5 freeway. I want to be accessible to downtown, as Carl's.
Right, not everybody has that
so-
option though.
Right, but that's where coming into like getting into a condo, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, maybe not in Carmel Valley, but there's Sorrento Valley, there's Mira Mesa, there are areas that are adjacent to it that are better than getting into an area where, you're driving by drug
Mira
dealers on
Mesa
the
is
street,
expensive.
Yeah.
So is Rancho Penasquitos.
it's a
They're
similar
all
concept.
like $500,000-$600,000
we're talking about
properties.
2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for $250, $260.
I would
$280.
never live in a condo. I have 2 kids because I would want them to have a backyard.
I know, but we're talking about the buyer, a first-time
Yeah.
home buyer,
it's a similar
that's doing what they
argument
can to get in the
Yeah.
market, build equity, get
And
the
then
strength.
also with condos, there comes HOA. And
Right.
There's other
do I want a
factors.
house
Right.
or
Yes.
do I want to pay HOA and live in a condo?
There's
Well,
a big
and if you're
difference
buying
between
a
the two.
very inexpensive condo, what does the budget look like? Is the building deteriorating? Is there a lot of termite work? Does the roof need to be replaced? And
In
you
the
could
ghetto,
be
you're
special
going to find that,
assessed
but
at
in
some
areas
point in time.
that are more
Right.
prominent, or in the areas that the location is, people are like, hey, I'm going to get into a townhouse because I can't get into a house over here.
So if you
And
have
then
someone going into
look
an
into it.
inexpensive condo for 3.5% down, and then all of a sudden
Right.
the roof needs
Huge
to be replaced,
assessment.
and there's
Yeah,
a $5,000
there's a big
assessment,
assessment.
and you can't afford it.
Exactly.
I know it's difficult to tell, but we're all very enthusiastic about buying real estate, and we're going to always tell
passionate.
anybody that they should get into the market and participate in that leverage, the creation of building equity for the family, and get that leverage that you need to do.
Totally
But
agree.
certainly not
In the right
everybody
area.
is a buyer.
No, not everybody is, and I think the way I should have phrased this, instead of saying the ghetto, I should have said the lower price point areas, because the lower price point
So
areas
LA.
aren't always the ghetto, right?
We can't even
they're not
say this
always
is the
the
ghetto.
ghetto.
we
Yeah,
have
we
clients
can't.
in our
There's
car.
no ghetto.
We
Is anybody
took an
watching this?
ethical class or something.
But here's a good example: is Temecula, right? Temecula is not a ghetto, but
blown
Temecula
up.
boomed when people couldn't afford to live here,
Right.
So they've all moved to Temecula, and they're sitting in their cars for an hour and a half one way, an hour and a half the next.
Sure.
At nighttime. And when the market dropped, I mean, you might as well pour kerosene over there and just burn all the houses down because they were worth nothing. And now it's coming back again. So it's
But it
kind
got
of a
that
similar-
initial
It's because of the
jolt from
affordability
being
factor,
affordable.
yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of people moved up there, and the traffic got worse. But people had to make that lifestyle decision about it's more affordable, but I'm sitting in my car. And what kind of
Now they're
Yeah.
buying electric cars because they don't want to spend money on gas, and they're living up in Temecula, spending 3 hours on the freeway going back and forth. Cost of, what's the cost of your time? And
Yeah, but the
as
schools
well
are
as
really good there. I got a lot of military families that like living there. Their wife's at
For
home
sure.
typically, and they have a carpool van, and they're totally okay with it because, again, if we want to go back to Ghetto, they rather travel back and forth from Temecula and have good school districts. I mean, that's some of the choices that families make, and so we get a lot of our military folks because for $400,000 or $500,000, you can buy a nice house there with a good school district.
Sure.
You know?
All right. I hate to cut this discussion short, but this next topic might even be bigger. Topic number 2.
Dun, dun, dun.
Auctions have become popular for real estate in recent years. Not distressed auctions, but traditional sale auctions. In other words, not a property that's a foreclosure, but someone who owns a home saying, I'm going to auction my house off. Is it a good idea to auction your property when it comes time to sell? Bryan Devore.
So I'm glad that you asked this question because on Sunday in the newspaper, there was actually some information about an auction.
You still get the
Man,
newspaper?
I get the
prepare.
newspaper. Look, I'm on the bike. Anyway, an auction for a property for $12.5 million. So it's not just the distressed properties that are doing it. The question is it the best way to go for the seller? My opinion is if it's a seller's market, you can create an auction environment without actually having an auction. I just listed a house in Carlsbad, and we priced it appropriately. We got 5 offers. It became a little bit of an auction-type environment. There's another property that was on the market in an area that I know pretty well, and it came on the market at a regular price. Then it came off the market. They switched agents to an auction agent. They put it on the market for far less money, and it didn't hit the reserve price, and now it's back off the market again. So I think that, in my opinion, you're better off going with a good agent, a lot of good, talented marketing, and priced appropriately. And in this market, in my opinion, it will create a little bit of a buying frenzy anyway.
Okay, cool.
I agree with Bryan. I mean, if we play a little word association game, I kind of want to hear what everyone has to say. In one word, what does the term auction mean to you? What comes to mind?
Cheap.
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 Yeah.
Discount.
I want to get
bargain,
a good deal.
Something's wrong with the
Someone's
property.
desperate.
Someone's desperate.
Or someone's selling something they don't care about.
Yeah. So in a regular
Right. That garage sale.
Yeah. So in a regular market, that might work. I think this is a move up market. So what you were saying in the previous segment about people buying and then pulling their equity out and buying bigger. Most of my clients right now are selling and buying concurrently, and they're getting multiple offers on the listing. And so because there's such a lack of inventory in most of the micro markets in San Diego, we're seeing multiple offers. You don't necessarily have to create this buzz about having an auctioneer at your property. There's the list price of the property, and then the buyers come in, they write offers, they set the market price in a market value in a normal market, and then the auction list price starts down here. Well, you both eventually get to the same place. It's just a matter of how. And so if you're marketing the property well, if you're pricing it well, chances are in this market with a low inventory, you're actually going to be getting, at your list price or higher, and your buyers are going to tell you that. They'll dictate it.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with 4 pros here, so we obviously feel strongly about our ability to go ahead and market a property properly and price it well enough to go ahead and create that buzz and the energy that maybe an auction is being sold at. Now, on the flip side, it's a marketing strategy, obviously, and it's a way to create a buzz and try and get enthusiasm and excitement. And much in the higher end, I haven't even seen it in the lower end. Those homes are popping with multiple offers, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
But on the higher end, for sure. Now, there are clients that don't want people going through their house every day. There are, clients that are high-end clients that, don't want anybody to know really whose house it is, and they time the showings and through one time period, and they get it out there. I don't know if it's the best or most effective way to handle a $19 million sale. Certainly, there's not an influx of buyers like
I bid $500,000.
Yeah, right. Like we're slamming $500,000 or $600,000 houses all day long with multiple offers, but and so if that's an avenue to
Well,
get
you can
that
do that
athlete
anyway
or
though with the showings.
Yeah.
You don't need to have an auction to time.
But is there any benefit?
I mean, the only thing I can think of, honestly, is sometimes I have these stubborn clients that just swear up and down their home is worth more. They're like, nope, my house is $800,000, that's it. And I almost wish that I can just do an auction just so I can bring them back to like reality and say, look, your home is worth $600,000 and here's all the offers that I'm getting at market price. Like, it brings people to market. I mean, maybe that's the only benefit I could think of is with those,
Yeah, I was going to just to follow up on what you were saying. Absolutely, it's all about pricing the home, and we're spreading it with all the search engines across the world and all the things that we're doing anyway, right? And but narrowing down that showing and offer process to a certain date and time kind of alleviates having to chase people back and forth as well. And if anybody wants to go ahead and participate, this is the time and day to do it. Now, I wasn't privy to a house not getting that number or selling and then coming back on the market. That certainly does not look good for that property,
right?
And for what you might try and get on the most money possible for that one.
Well, and buyers are educating themselves. So they're online, they're educating themselves, they're smart. Some of them are coming in on my listings and they don't want to be in competition with other buyers and they're backing off. And then the seller actually loses out. Yeah. So I think, I just don't see the auction process
I think
working.
if it's a buyer's market and the person's having a tough time selling their home, it's one other avenue you can try. I always thought it'd be kind of interesting to try to list a house for $1 and
water
see
rises
just
to its
see what
natural
happens.
and just see
level.
what happens.
Yeah.
The market's going to find the right price.
Yep.
If you overprice it, you're going to have to come down. If you do it in auction, you're going to underprice the home. But nowadays, all the buyers see it on Zillow and Trulia, and they say, "What's wrong with that house? Why is it so cheap?"
Everybody says
because they don't
that.
know it's an auction. They just see the price.
The auction's in the MLS, though, right? It's in the multiple listing service, so they see the home. The only thing that's changing is when the offer is going to be presented.
Yes,
and,
but if you have a
and how it's
buyer
being
in their
presented.
pajamas at 11 o'clock at night looking online, and they see this price of this house, they say, "What's wrong with this?" And
So
it
the
gets
word
really
auction
confusing.
has
has a
negative
negative
connotation
yeah.
I think
to
so.
it.
Yeah.
Actually, they should change it to a
And
word
I mean,
that's
they'll
more
put
exciting.
non-distress. Yeah, they put non-distress
Change the word
sale,
auction
and
to,
some of
like,
the one real
explosion.
estate company that actually does this, they price the house 20%. They start 20% below the market value, and it creates that excitement. But really, it's just like almost false advertising. And then they'll just do the auction, create the buzz, get a lot of phone calls. but they don't have to sell it at whatever, if the seller decides not to go with that price, if, because
Yeah,
nobody
seller
wants.
still has to accept it.
Yeah, seller still has to accept it. Nobody's going to accept 20% below market value.
It obviously is working, and there are companies that are doing it. I think they found a strategy to try and simplify the multiple offer situation, and maybe they thought, hey, somebody who's on the outside, we're on the inside, and we know and feel that we're the best to serve the seller. But somebody on the outside was like, hey, let's just change this up a little bit, and maybe rather than having a bidding war, let's just everybody submit at one time, and let's see who has.
Let
the
me
best
ask one
situation.
question, since we're running out of time. But couldn't you do the same thing without using the word auction? Couldn't you just price it 20% below market value and see what
Absolutely. That's how
happens?
you
Well,
price
and
it
that,
up,
well,
yeah.
see, my question to you is going to be, how do you know it's working? Or how do you know it's working?
People are doing it a lot.
But how do you know that's better than a traditional alternative?
Oh no,
think
I
we
didn't,
did.
And
I
if
didn't
you-
say
if
that
you-
I thought it was better. I see that they're out there and they're participating, and maybe not in the San Diego market,
Right.
but in other marketplaces. And so,
But
unless
could
they're
the
just
seller have
losing a
gotten
lot
the
of
same
money.
result or even maybe a better result
Yeah.
if they priced it actually to market and got above that?
Right. Or
Yeah.
a little bit below
Well, and
market,
it gets
like we
tricky
do.
too. So you
Strategy.
said, couldn't you just list the property at 20% lower? Sure, you could, but buyers aren't going to pay 20% higher on a regular listing if they don't understand that it's not an auction.
It always rises to where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're realtors. We go out with a buyer, and they're like, "Whoa, $400,000!" You're like, you know what? It's like 6.25.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
so
the
like-
banks would put the houses on the
Yeah.
market at ridiculously low prices, but you knew it was going to go up. The market will find the right price.
Well, and we're talking about like MLS listings or luxury property listings. I've been on the courthouse steps bidding for properties in the trough of the market. I've been online at auction.com bidding for buyers in
It's a
the
pain.
downturn, and it's a pain. And those types of sales online are completely different. The buyer pays a 5% premium. They go in, they don't get to do inspections.
Right.
They're online bidding.
Wow.
I've been up till 1 o'clock in the morning
On
upping a
Hubzu.
bid
Yeah.
by
$1.
$1,000,
Yeah.
$1,000, $1,000, and then you miss out, and then they never actually sell it because they don't hit their minimum.
They don't
And
hit
then
the
they
reserve.
list it with
yeah.
a regular agent. So
I've actually never participated in one, nor been on the steps of the courthouse.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
I did, and it was
But,
horrible.
It was
I
horrible.
did the Hubzu thing, even though, even if you hit the reserve,
Yeah.
they can come back and send you, we got an email.
Right.
My client got excited. It's like, looks like, our deal got accepted.
Right.
And then the next day we get a call. It's like, you know what? They decided they're not going to sell it to you. We're going to try the auction
Wow.
one more time.
Right.
And that was Hubzu. And he was upset. And I'm like, let's just stay away from this.
Right.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So when anybody hears auction, I think it's just got that negative tone to it. And I mean, the only benefit, I would say, if everybody wants to list with me, 20% less, I'll put them all on Zillow and get a ton of leads from it.
Right.
Great, no problem. I'll do that.
All right.
Fantastic
Yeah, you get a
discussion.
bunch of leads on people that want to buy the properties at 70 cents. on the
Hate to cut you
dollar.
off. This has been an awesome discussion. We have run out of time. Thank you all so much for coming today.
Pleasure.
Really,
Thank
really
you.
All right,
appreciate
thanks for
it.
having us.
Check out more of the real estate debate on smartersandiego.tv. We'll be back again next month, same time, same channel. We will see you then.